Hi guys and welcome back. Today we'll be going over how to paint braided hair on Procreate. And welcome to Creatively Me with Bree. You guessed it, I'm Bree. Now, it took me a while, if I'm being honest, to figure out how on earth a braid actually functions. So there's a couple different ways that I went about discovering it. This one that you're seeing there, it's essentially the herringbone pattern, and you just sort of round out the edges to create a braid. Another option was I actually had a braided belt and I took a picture of it so I could use it as reference. So here you'll see that I have somewhat distorted the image. I'm going to actually distort it a little bit further to make it so that it's wider at the top and smaller at the bottom, because that's exactly what happens with braided hair. It starts out thick and it starts out wider at the top, and then it slowly tapers off to the tail end of the braid. Now, the particular type of braid that we're actually painting is called a Dutch braid, which is essentially the reverse of the French braid. The French braid is the herringbone pattern that you saw first. This one is the herringbone pattern essentially, but flipped vertically. So as you can see, I took my photograph and I lowered the opacity, and then on a new layer, I am presently tracing over the main shapes that I want to have show up before I begin painting, so that I can get a clear understanding of exactly where all of my colors and highlights are going to go. And now that I have the majority or the main body of the braid sketched out, I do end up adding a tail at the end. Again, I don't put in too much detail, just enough to sort of get an idea of how I want the overall braid to look. Next, I go in and you can see I'm using Freeform to move the braid around a little bit and squish it a little bit because I really wanted the braid to feel as natural as possible. So you'll see me making some slight adjustments to the overall sketch. Now that we have the sketch down, we're going to jump into the painting portion. So as you can see, I end up turning the braid sketch white so that I can see the foundation color, which I'm about to paint, much more easily. I basically just underneath on its own layer, I just fill out the space just to get the general shape down of the braid, so that way when I start to add in the highlights and the brush strokes that will create more realistic looking hair, we have the base coat already established. So now that we have our base coat of paint, so to speak, down, I can hide it and I can change our white sketch back to black. It'll be easier for us to see the ways in which we need to put down our next brush strokes. The brush that I end up using for the hair is called Twig, and it's under organic. It comes with the Procreate set. And there's no changes to it. That's just, it is how it comes. And then I use my outline as a reference guide for getting the quote unquote hair to move in the correct directions. So as you can see, there is color variation, but it's hard to see. And I wanted it to be very clear that we're painting these brush strokes in the direction that we would want the hair to appear as well. So I sped this up so that way you guys wouldn't have to watch me do the same motion over and over again all the way down. And I know it doesn't look good right now, and let's be honest, it looks like crap, but trust the process. I promise it's going to come together. Here I end up putting the base coat visible so that way you can see there is a difference, and you can see where there will be shadows or lowlights happening in the hair. Now I'm going back in with a just slightly lighter color, slightly less coverage than the first brush strokes that I had done. And there you go. Now you can start to see, there's creating more and more highlights. You don't want it everywhere. You just want it on the parts where light would hit it. Knowing where your light source is very important for creating realistic anything, but in this case, hair. So then again, you see me using even more vibrant color. Again, trust the process, guys. It won't look like this forever, I promise. I go through, highlighting the portions that I feel will best reflect the sort of lighting that we're looking at. Now I'm going to use the smudge tool, and I'm going to use the Twig smudge as well. So, again, we won't be using many brushes, and the brushes that we do use come in the Procreate app. And basically what you're going to see me do for probably the next minute here is literally just smudging and blending. I'm just trying to move the colors around so that it looks just a little bit more natural and blended in. I do combine the two layers together, so the base with the highlights now, so that they can blend more easily. Now you might notice there's a couple lines that aren't really disappearing. Those lines that you're seeing, the black ones that aren't disappearing, that's the sketch. So I have the sketch there just to make it easier on your eyes visually, so you can really see where the separation and delineation is from each hair that's braided. Here is without that sketch on, so you can start to see the way the hair is starting to finally come together. Again, I'm going in, making yet another lighter layer. So this whole time we've been using the twig brush in order to not only draw in the hair details, but also to blend and smudge them. In order to smudge and blend and create a little bit more of a realistic effect, we're actually going to go in a moment, and we are going to use the airbrush called Medium Hard Brush. Now, again, these are just brushes that I use. By all means, get creative, play around. That's how I figured out that Twig actually made a great option for painting hair. And while I absolutely love using the paintbrush packs that I have bought over the years, when I do tutorials, I try really hard to utilize brushes that come with Procreate, because not all of us can afford to purchase, specialty brush sets. So you're going to see me go in and repaint some areas and also smudge and blend some areas. The only brushes that I'm using during this entire time is the Twig as well as the airbrush, the medium hard brush in particular. And I used to really struggle with letting go of some of these details, but ultimately we want to use the Twig brush to create those detailed lines of hair, but then go back in and take out some of the harsh details with the medium hard brush of the airbrush option, because you can convey an image without needing to render every detail. Now, I can't stress this enough. If you are a detailed artist or you like styles that are detailed, there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it's amazing. There are some extremely talented artists out there that are great at detailed work. For me personally, as an artist and as a creative, my over-detailed work was due to my own personal issues with perfectionism. And so I actually found more success in forcing and teaching myself to loosen up and allow myself the permission to not have every detail sorted out. Hyperrealism is a valid form of art, and I absolutely am in awe of it. I just personally cannot create it. So a lot of the remaining parts of this video that you're going to see really are me just painting in and blending and smudging, like I said. And like you would do with real art, like traditional art, not that this isn't real art. This is real. It's not imaginary, I promise. But as you would do with traditional art, we would typically step away from our piece and observe it from a distance. I recommend that you zoom in and zoom out often while painting digitally. And sometimes even just stepping away for a few minutes so you can get a clear view of what's happening. I always find it hilarious as much as I do find it irritating when I am editing a video and I'm like, I should have stepped back and gone back to this painting before I went ahead and finalized it, because there are some spots that I painted that even now are just bothering me. But that's okay, because it's not about perfection, right? We've been over this. So It's good practice letting it go. That's what I keep telling myself anyways. And around here, you're going to start seeing me add in just a little bit finer, smaller details. I am going to go in and make each loop, if you will, of the braid just a little bit different. You want it to feel realistic. And so we want to make sure that not everything is too uniform, because the more uniform, the less realistic it's actually going to look. You want there to be, the uniqueness of life, where nothing is in fact perfect. So there will be hairs that stick out. There will be parts that aren't perfectly braided in and aren't perfectly smoothed down. So I think it's just really important to take your time, and photo reference, guys. I can't stress enough. If you don't know how hair looks, if you don't know how lighting is working, use photo references. The world is full of resources and tools. Utilize them. I gotta be honest. I don't know that I have much more to say until we get to a more, exhilarating part. And I feel like my videos always have at least one awkward lull. So I think this is going to be that awkward lull. Yep, it's happening. Here it is. Just for you guys. Look at those highlights. Gosh, this would be so much better if I actually had something interesting to say. You guys can play this part at 2x speed, I won't be offended. I won't know either. So it's like a win-win for us both, No, really, it's okay. Go ahead. Play it at 2 speed. Yeah, I know. Interesting. While we're all sitting here quietly together, if you guys have time, do the things, subscribe, engage, comment. I'd love to know, is hair something that you struggle to draw? Is it something you want more videos of, different types of hair? Let me know. I really enjoy painting certain elements of humans, but not others. One thing that I'm working on this year as a goal is working on faces. While I do get anatomy, and I have painted humans before, it's not my strongest forte, and I'd like to make it one of my skills. My favorite subject matters tend to be nature, and I also really enjoy animals and people, and I really would love to get into that. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on as a personal goal for 2025. I know we're not even done with 2024. I'm just putting it out there in the universe. Pre-manifestation is, hopefully a real thing. So this highlight layer that I'm creating these small details with is on its own layer, separate from the layer that I was working on before. In a moment, it might be a long moment from now, but in a moment, you will see me utilize blending modes. I believe I use add as the blending mode to make these highlight details stand out even that much more and even brighter. I think honestly, the hardest part about making hair, braided hair in particular, was actually figuring out how the braid worked and figuring out which braid I wanted to use. Because apparently there's lots of different braids out there. Once I knew the braid style and shape, the painting portion was extremely simple. It really was just layering lighter and lighter colors. I wanted more red hair than brunette. And, just understanding highlights and shadows. And then just smudging using basically only 2 brushes this entire time. So you might have noticed that the highlights I did turn to add as the blending mode. And as I'm blending it, you can actually see the sharpness, the brightness coming out as I'm actually spreading the color to create those details. And yeah, this is basically it, guys. It's the same motions, same idea, all the way through to the end. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this. Thank you for your support of my channel. I am always open to suggestions, questions. Please feel free to ask. I do all kinds of art, everything from traditional to digital, and I love them both dearly. So if you have questions on either, let me know down below in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe, engage, all the things to help my channel grow so that I can keep doing fun stuff like this. I hope that you guys had a wonderful time hanging out with me, and that the awkward silence wasn't too awkward and didn't scare you away, because I'd love to have you back. Please don't get discouraged if a project like this takes you anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, maybe even longer. When you guys see tutorials online, you're seeing edited down versions of a very long project. And art takes time, as does the practice. Time is a valuable resource here on this earth. It's something we don't get back. So if you've given your time to this tutorial, thank you. I hope that you have found this information useful and worth your time. Take care, guys, and I'll see you soon.